$267,481. That's how much a Fortune 500 company demanded back from one of their own employees. Their accusation? Wage theft. Fraud. 4 years of paychecks collected under false pretenses. Their evidence? Ironclad. Years of direct deposits. Badge-in records. Benefits enrollment. Their case? Completely destroyed in court. Because here's what the company didn't count on. This employee never quit. He was never fired. He showed up. Every single day. He just didn't do anything. For 4 years, this man existed in a bureaucratic blind spot. A glitch in the corporate matrix. No manager. No assignments. No reviews. Just a badge that worked and a paycheck that cleared. Today we're diving into one of the most bizarre workplace stories I've ever pulled from my files. A tale of mergers, incompetence, and one man who accidentally became a professional ghost. This is the corporate glitch, and it starts with a memo.
Look, I'm not gonna pretend I was some kind of mastermind. I need you to understand that right off the bat. I didn't plan this. I didn't scheme. I just didn't correct a mistake. And that mistake made me $250,000. So let me take you back to 2018. I was 29 years old, working as a data systems analyst for a mid-sized tech company in Ohio. We'll call them Nexion Technologies. About 1,400 employees. Not huge, not tiny. The kind of company where you knew your floor, maybe recognized some faces in the cafeteria, but couldn't name half the executives if someone put a gun to your head. I made $67,000 a year. Decent benefits. Nothing spectacular, but hey, I had a 401k match in dental. I was surviving. My direct manager was a guy named Phil. Good dude. Bit of a pushover, but he left me alone and signed off on my timesheets without asking questions. That's all you really want in a boss, right? Then in March of 2018, we got the email. Nexion Technologies is proud to announce a strategic merger with Viridian Corp. Now, if you've ever lived through a corporate merger, you know exactly what that phrase means. It means layoffs. It means restructuring. It means half the company is about to get reshuffled like a deck of cards, and whoever lands face down is gone. For 6 weeks, nobody knew anything. Rumors flew around the office like a virus. HR was holding transition meetings that told us absolutely nothing. Managers were getting pulled into conference rooms and coming out pale. I kept my head down. Figured if I didn't make waves, maybe I'd survive the cuts. Then one Monday, I came in and Phil's desk was empty. No goodbye. No email. Just gone. His name was already scraped off the door. I figured someone would tell me what was happening. A new manager would appear. There'd be a meeting. There wasn't. For 2 weeks, I came in, sat at my desk, and waited. I checked my email. Nothing. Checked the company org chart. My department, Legacy Data Integration, wasn't even listed anymore. It had been absorbed into something called Viridian Systems Architecture, which was apparently based in their Dallas office. But here's the thing. Here's the glitch. My badge still worked. I swiped in every morning, and the little light went green. My login still worked. I could access my email, the internal network, everything. And on the 15th, my paycheck hit. Same amount. $2,320.17 after taxes. Direct deposit. Right on schedule. I remember staring at my phone in the parking lot thinking, this has to be a mistake. They're gonna catch this. Someone's gonna call me into HR any second. I walked in that day ready to be fired. Nobody said a word to me. Okay. So here's where I need you to understand my headspace. I wasn't trying to commit fraud. I wasn't rubbing my hands together like some cartoon villain. I was terrified. Every single day, I walked in expecting security to meet me at the door. But they never did. And after 2 months of waiting for the axe to fall, I stopped waiting. I developed a routine. I called it being professionally invisible. I'd badge in around 8:45. Not too early, not too late. Early enough to look like I belonged, late enough that the morning rush had died down and nobody was paying attention. I found the quietest corners of the building. There was this half-empty floor, the fourth floor, that used to belong to some department Viridian gutted entirely. A few desks were still set up. I claimed one in the back, near a window with a broken blind that nobody ever fixed. I brought a laptop. I'd open spreadsheets. Look busy. I learned that if you furrow your brow at a screen, people assume you're working. Nobody ever asked what I was doing. The cafeteria was risky, so I ate lunch in my car or at this sandwich place 2 blocks away. I avoided the floors where actual work was happening. If I saw someone I vaguely recognized from the old days, I'd nod, keep walking, and pray they didn't try to start a conversation. And every 2 weeks, payday. $2,320.17. Like clockwork.
Now, at this point, some of you might be screaming at your screens. Just tell someone. Collect severance. Get out while you can. And you'd have a point. Any rational person would have walked into HR, explained the situation, and negotiated an exit. But here's what you need to understand about corporate bureaucracy. It doesn't reward honesty. It punishes it. If he'd come forward in month 2, what would have happened? Best case, a quiet termination and maybe a few weeks of severance. Worst case, they'd have accused him of already defrauding them and clawed back those first paychecks. So he did what any terrified, confused, underpaid millennial would do. He kept showing up.
By year 2, the fear had mostly faded. It was replaced by something weirder. Boredom. And guilt. And also, kind of a game? I know that sounds messed up. But after a year of this, you start to see the whole thing differently. The company wasn't some innocent victim. Nexion had laid off 300 people during that merger. People with families. People who actually worked. And here I was, a line item that someone forgot to delete, collecting checks for existing. Was it my fault their system was broken? I started reading. A lot. I went through maybe 80 books in those 4 years. I learned Spanish on Duolingo. I got really into chess. I'd play online games on my phone, tucked under my desk like a teenager in study hall. Some days I'd just walk. I'd badge out for lunch, drive to a park, sit on a bench for 3 hours, then badge back in. Nobody ever questioned my hours. The craziest part? I got a raise. Year 3. Cost of living adjustment. Automatic, company-wide. I went from $67,000 to $68,400. I almost laughed out loud when I saw the notification. I wasn't even in the system properly. I was a ghost. A rounding error. But the payroll software didn't care. It saw an employee. It gave that employee 2.1% more. At that point, I stopped feeling guilty. I started feeling like I was running an experiment. How long could this last? What would it take for someone to notice? The answer, it turned out, was 4 years, 2 months, and 11 days. I remember the exact day. February 11th. A Friday. I was at my usual spot on the 4th floor, reading an article about, I don't know, true crime or something. And I heard footsteps. Not the usual distant ones. These were close. And purposeful. I looked up, and there were 2 women standing at the end of my row. Blazers. Lanyards. HR. One of them looked at a clipboard, then looked at me. Then back at the clipboard. Are you Michael Stratton? My heart stopped. 4 years of adrenaline hit me in about 2 seconds. I said, yeah. That's me. She looked at her colleague. Her colleague looked at her. There was this pause, this long, awkward pause, where I could literally see them trying to figure out who I was. Could you come with us, please? They took me to a conference room on the 8th floor. The executive floor. Bad sign. There was a guy from legal there. Another guy who I later found out was the new CFO. And they laid it out for me. Mr. Stratton, according to our records, you have not been assigned to any active department, project, or supervisor since April of 2018. I nodded. You have continued to badge into this facility and collect a salary during that time. I nodded again. Do you understand that this constitutes fraud? And here's where I said the only smart thing I've ever said in my life. I'd like to speak with a lawyer before I answer any further questions.
Smart man. Because what followed was not a negotiation. It was war. Within 2 weeks, Viridian Corp filed a civil lawsuit against Michael Stratton. The claim? Fraudulent misrepresentation and unjust enrichment. The demand? Repayment of 4 years of wages, benefits, and 401k contributions. The total? $267,481. They wanted it all back.
I won't lie to you. When I got served with that lawsuit, I almost threw up. I thought my life was over. I thought I was going to prison. I hired a lawyer, guy named Dennis, employment law specialist. Cost me $8,000 just for the retainer. I figured I was about to lose everything. But Dennis was calm. Almost weirdly calm. He read through their complaint. He read through my employment records. He pulled up the org charts, the HR transition memos, everything from the merger. Then he looked at me and said, "They never fired you." I said, "What?" He said, "There's no termination letter. There's no severance agreement. There's no exit interview. According to every document they have, you are still an active employee who has reported to work for 4 consecutive years." I blinked at him. "So what does that mean?" He smiled. "It means they don't have a case." The case went before a judge 7 months later. And let me tell you, watching Viridian's lawyers try to argue their side was almost worth the stress. Their argument was basically, this man knew he wasn't supposed to be there. He collected paychecks fraudulently by pretending to work. My lawyer's argument was simpler. My client reported to the workplace every scheduled business day. He never falsified timesheets. He never submitted fraudulent work. He was an at-will employee who was never terminated. The failure to assign him work is not his failure. It's theirs. The judge asked Viridian's counsel one question that basically ended the case. "Can you show me the termination notice for Mr. Stratton?" They couldn't. "Can you show me any documentation indicating his role was eliminated?" They couldn't. "Can you show me that Mr. Stratton was ever informed, verbally or in writing, that he was no longer employed?" They couldn't. Case dismissed. I walked out of that courtroom with my money, my record clean, and the most insane story I will ever tell for the rest of my life.
$267,000. 4 years of paychecks. An illegal victory that proved one immutable truth about the corporate machine. It doesn't see people. It sees processes. And when the process breaks, no one checks. No one questions. No one cares. You are a number in a spreadsheet, and if your number keeps getting paid, the spreadsheet assumes everything is fine. Michael Stratton didn't steal from his company. He just existed in the gap. And when the company finally woke up and realized their mistake, they had no one to blame but themselves. So the next time you feel invisible at your job, the next time you wonder if anyone even notices you're there, maybe take a little comfort in knowing, sometimes, that invisibility, it's worth $250,000. And that's the file. Another case closed. Another story pulled from the archives of human absurdity. If this one hit different, if you've ever worked for a company that didn't know your name, drop a comment. Let me know. I read every single one. And if you haven't already, subscribe. Because there are more stories in these files. Darker ones. Funnier ones. Stories that'll make you question everything you think you know about fairness, karma, and the systems we all pretend to trust. Until next time, stay invisible, friends.